Layla Luna is determined to create a world where anyone with autism and neurodiversity is treated with compassion and with equality. I talk one-on-one with Layla about her non-profit organization, Just Be, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Layla Luna, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you greatly. I know that, Layla, you are the founder and CEO of Just Be, which is a nonprofit organization determined to create a world where anyone with autism and neurodiversity, that is treated equally and compassionately. As we sit here right now, Ms. Layla, tell me, what's new, what's now with Just Be?
Oh, so much is going on with Just Be. So the most exciting thing is House Representative Kathy Landing and House Representative Mark Smith took a bill all the way. It passed the House unanimously to change the license plates in South Carolina to add the Just Be logo in the middle instead of the palmetto tree for families that have an individual with autism or neurodiversity. They can go with, their diagnosis to the DMV and they can get these plates. It still has to pass the Senate, so we're waiting maybe in the next couple weeks, keeping our fingers crossed. But what this would do is it was strictly for law enforcement. So if you were to be pulled over or on the side of the road, the license plate, you would be able to scan it and see, oh, there's Layla Luna. She has a nonverbal son who potentially could be in the car. Turn off sirens, turn off lights, approach calmly, know that we are dealing with someone on the spectrum so that we don't, get hurt or recently, and it's been a big problem, is a lot of the time because of the sensory overload, anyone with autism or neurodiversity will lose language. They will try to fidget in their pocket. They might lean in and try to touch the officer. They're not going to answer commands, especially if they're nonverbal, or they'll run. So the past and the history has been a lot of shootings, tased, arrest, because, for law enforcement, they have seconds to decide, is this individual on the spectrum and having a sensory overload, or could this be a criminal or drugs? And who wants to be the police officer within seconds that makes that wrong decision? So this license plate will protect the autistic and neurodivergent community, also giving us the rights to park in handicap spots. We'll have the same. We'll get into parks and museums for free. Law enforcement, EMT, and first responders and fire will all have to have mandatory training. But the most exciting part is to develop the first ever facial recognition database so that if you choose, you can sign your child up like I would. And if my son were to get lost being nonverbal, it's done. But they could scan him and know that that's Rio and that he's autistic and he's lost. So the goal is South Carolina would be the first ever state in our nation to have a license plate and this kind of technology to protect the future of the autistic and neurodivergent children and adults and families. It's a big win. Yeah.
And Ms. Layla, as we sit here right now, how many of these families have had to deal with those issues with sensory overload when it comes to law enforcement here in South Carolina?
They say an individual that's on the spectrum will have at least 2 to 3 encounters with law enforcement in their lifetime, and 50% of or individuals with mental disabilities or mental illness are killed by police. Huge numbers.
How do you use your resources to help law enforcement with this training now that you have the license bill in place?
Well, Just Be has, by Dr. Diane Cullinane, the woman who leading doctor in the field who has written our training curriculum for businesses, has written a very intensive, really high educational program and training for law enforcement, for first responders, for fire. A lot of the training for autism, they do it in April because they're like, oh, it's April's Autism Awareness Month. And you're like, well, autism is year round. It's not just in April, and it affects everyone. But they don't really tap the ones that I've seen. I'm not saying that all of them are not as good as others. I'm not here to judge. But the ones that I've reviewed, they don't really touch on girls, masking. Originally they thought only boys could be autistic. That's why they light up blue, because that's why the national color is blue, because they thought it was only boys. Girls tend to copy and paste. It's called masking. So they have full language. They might be pretty. They might be popular, but they're like actresses. So they have huge anxiety and they cannot understand social cues in the sense where they can't gauge predators So they're in a very vulnerable situation, and plus nonverbal, which is my son. They really don't talk about nonverbal a lot in the training. 90% of autistic children died because of drowning. They don't understand that a river or an ocean is not a swimming pool. It's the same. Or if there's a fire, an individual will stay in its room. They will go back to their room or into the house when there's a fire. They can't gauge danger. And with my son, honestly, how's he going to call 911? He doesn't talk. So there's no plan in place as we move forward with the fastest growing developmental diagnosis in history. 1 out of every 36 kids in America and 1 out of every 45 adults.
Wow.
It's massive.
It is, absolutely. Can you balance this out for me? How many more girls are more prone to autism versus boys now in 2024?
I think the last time I looked at the numbers, I think it's 1 out of every 113 girls versus like 1 out of every 40 something boys or 50. I got to look at the numbers, but it's because it's not as diagnosed. But girls are definitely getting more diagnosed in the later teens and early 20s. That's the thing, is that they don't really understand that they're on the spectrum. It's very new talking about girls being autistic. It's always been boys. It's more prevalent in boys. You can see it immediately most of the time in boys. My son, but I have to backtrack and say that once you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. They're all different. So we don't really can say this is this way or that's that way. But as we start to approach and get more education awareness, we're starting to find that a lot of girls are autistic. There was a study that just came out that 90% of girls have been molested at least 3 to 4 times in their lifetime because of being autistic and not being able to gauge the danger. I know it's heavy. But we need to talk about it. We need to be in the conversation. Right. I met a mother the other day who found out in her late 20s she was autistic, but she went through her whole childhood being molested and this kind of stuff because she didn't know what was right from wrong. She doesn't understand. So these are the kind of things that we need to start to address. But very other exciting news is that the app is out, and we are really excited. The Just Be app, we've been onboarding a lot of businesses. We're getting a lot of families on it. So we are the Yelp of autism. We're out there training businesses, getting them certified, and creating this new untapped market of revenue for businesses on slower hours of operation. I'm trying to make 2 to 4 the new 5 o'clock. So that families can go into places, feel welcomed, know that, they are accepted. It's a calmer space. We don't want to change the child to fit the environment. We just want to change the environment to fit the child. It's an easy fix. Dimming the lights, training staff, turn off the TVs, turn down the music, understand, skip the line. We just partnered with Boone Hall. So now Boone Hall is going to be sensory friendly. We've trained all staff. They have the Just Be pins on, they have the sensory bags, they've skipped the line, they're going to have discounts. Moving forward, all the events at Boone Hall Plantation will have sensory hours, including their Halloween. I have Lights and Love that's coming up, which is my event. I partner with Town Center, and that's April 21st from 2 to 4, and that's just celebrating 1 year anniversary of making Mount Pleasant certified as the first autism-friendly town in the Low Country. We're 1 year in. So it's amazing, we're really moving, and I'm just hoping to be that spokesperson, that voice for all the families, all the moms, meeting these kids and meeting these parents who have just gotten the early diagnosis and seeing the heartbreak. And I just want to give them hope. My work with Just Be is for my son who's 15 and will age out of the system. We have 100,000 young adults aging out of the system every year. That's that's going to be 1 million in 10 years. The medical community is estimating that by 2030, 1 out of every 2 kids will be on the spectrum.
So when these, kids obviously, age out of this particular system, Miss Layla, what's the training behind that next?
Okay, so here's the big thing. We call it the cliff. This is the scariest thing for myself, for most parents. 85% of autistic adults are unemployed. If you have an IEP, which is an individual education plan, but you have to have a diagnosis to get that. There's a 3-year wait list to get a diagnosis in South Carolina. If you have an IEP, you can only be in school till 21. Mm-hmm. Adults are 6 times more likely to commit suicide due to loneliness and isolation. And here's where it gets really hard. If God forbid something were to happen to me, my son becomes a ward of the state or homeless. So the moms and dads, our dream in life is that we have to outlive our children. That's our goal. There's no plan in place. So it's up to businesses to be innovative. This is a corporate social responsibility. Businesses need to start to hire individuals on the spectrum. People on the spectrum are brilliant. We have to celebrate brain differences. I mean, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Simone Biles, Michael Phelps, Eminem, Billie Eilish, some of the greatest minds, Einstein, Mozart, have been on the spectrum. So what we're asking businesses to be more creative in the hiring process. Individuals, they may not look you in the eye. They might even be nonverbal. They might not be your front man, but they have skills. They are talented and they want to work. So what I'm asking our world, our community, is to redefine what success is. Is success $1 million? Is success a college degree? Or success just giving someone purpose in their life?
What is success for people with autism?
Sorry?
What is success with people who have autism?
Having a job, finding love, having friends, being part of the community, not living in their room on an iPad, watching everyone have this quality of life that they don't have. Learning to coexist, learning to get rid of the stigma. This is the new normal. We have the highest numbers, and autism doesn't discriminate. Autism takes everybody. Autism doesn't care about your skin color, your religion, your sexual orientation, rich, poor. They take us all. So the question is, why so many people are, why are so many kids now becoming autistic? What is happening in our world? What's causing this? Well, for me, I believe they're here to cure us. I believe that God is giving us so many of these children to cure us, to change our eyes forever, to make us more compassionate, empathetic, and tolerant for a world that is like a circus right now. We're a circus, and we need these individuals to help us change. And that's what Just Be is about, to just be kind, to just be nice, just be human, to just be. And I'm hoping that the more education awareness and that changing the narrative, because there is no look to autism. There's no facial recognition to autism. There's no look to dyslexia, ADHD. My story started with being kicked out of a restaurant because it took forever for us to get the pizza. And my son had a sensory overload meltdown, and people thought he was a brat and I was a terrible mom, so they kicked us out. Now, if my son had a visible disability, that wouldn't have happened. So let's change the narrative. Next time you see a parent or a child struggling, maybe instead of judging them, maybe you'll think, you know what? I wonder if they're on the spectrum. Can I help you? How can I help you? This is the world that we need to create. That's the conversation.
So many things to digest right now, Ms. Layla. But let me ask you this. On a local scale, what are those sensory-friendly businesses right now?
Well, first of all, with Mount Pleasant being certified and training the police, yes, and training and opening up to businesses, for me, it's power of the pocketbook. If pizza's pizza, then I'm not going to support a business that doesn't have this like bumblebee sticker on the window. What we want to do is make sure that businesses, once they get trained and get certified, they take a pledge, whether they're going to have a discount, a roundup, a sensory-friendly hours, host an event. And if that bumblebee sticker seal is not in the window, then we don't go. Because we live in a social impact world. Your money matters. And we want to contribute to a business that supports a community that is worth supporting. And that's the win-win. Community helping community. And these businesses, whether I've trained every Pinnacle bank in South Carolina, they even have sensory rooms in Mount Pleasant, agent-owned real estate agency, because how many people are moving here? You don't think they're going to have a child that's on the spectrum? From dentists to churches to where to get a haircut, where to market, where to pray. Where can we go to a church and pray with our family and bring all of them, because the family nucleus is disconnected. Like my son is autistic, but he has 2 typical sisters. So we're our whole family unit. It's not just my son that's autistic. We're a family unit of 4 or 5 when we go out. But we can't go out because, we don't want to be the unicorn and everyone stare at us. But when we teach people, we train, and we're more educated as a community and more tolerant, then we can be part of our world and exist. And that way, we can navigate through our life. The app is the goal, because the app is like the Yelp of autism. You can go on the app and you can find all the businesses in your area that are supporting your community. And those are the places that we're going to go. If you look at it, they do this all the time. I'm not reinventing the wheel. They do it for veteran-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. The pets get everything. Pet-friendly, pets got it made. Vegans, gluten-free, you name it. But nothing for the autistic or neurodivergent community, creating sensory-friendly and welcoming environments.
What is their fear?
Excuse me?
What is their fear behind not getting behind and supporting the autism community?
Well, all you have to do is, join our website, come to our events, be part of it, download the app. We're asking as many people to download the app. It's on Apple and Google Play. It's just BEE. Because what that does is it shows that we're scalable, that this community is big enough. So that's my ask for any of your viewers that are listening, to download the app. Because then when I go to businesses and I show them, we have 2,000 families on this app that are willing to come, then that speaks volumes, because it's about the money. A lot of the time businesses want to create money, and this is a great opportunity while they're paying their employees to stay on their slower hours of operation. It could be filled with families like myself that choose not even autism. They're, sensory overload is the same thing as PTSD. There's plenty of families that just want calmer hours. We live in a new world. Our children are being wired differently. There's such stimuli, whether it's electric modified fields or, the food or whatever's happening. These kids are wired different. So we need to create a new environment. And it's not that hard. So it's a win.
And I want to get back to that in just a second, Miss Layla. But let me ask you this, then. I'm just now thinking about this, but
I took you on a left turn.
Oh, you did. But I wanted to know this. Okay, obviously, as you just mentioned earlier, Charleston is growing. So how do you all, with your organization and your resources, keep up with that growth?
Oh, I am going to make South Carolina the first autism-friendly state in our nation, so I can keep up. And we've got other states that are just waiting. There's so much with Charleston. First of all, 87% of autistic families have never taken family vacations. I have never traveled with my son ever in his life. So if you think about it, I think last year South Carolina brought in 49 billion or something. I think Mount Pleasant brought in 12 billion. Tourism.
Yes.
Think about all the families. 93% of autistic families said they would travel if they knew a place was welcoming. Oh. So when I started Just Be and I made Mount Pleasant certified as the first autism-friendly town in the country, I campaigned on a slogan called Just Be Southern, because all we're doing is Southern hospitality. It's just kindness. It's not that hard. So when you can do that, babe, sorry.
Oh, no worries.
I'm at home.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, no worries.
So when you campaign on that kind of slogan, just think about, even if the families were to come and it's like 0.001%, they would come on off season and off time, creating this amazing opportunity for all these families to come. And, Charleston's known internationally. People from all around the world could come here and experience Charleston and be part of this beautiful state, but know that they're welcome and they're going to be treated with that Southern kindness. Absolutely. And that's what it's about. Yeah, so we can scale this, whether we're scaling. I'm starting to work with your military. I'm going to start getting on the bases and working with all the families. The military is showing some of the highest numbers of autism. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that's going on that we can, work together and have so many opportunities to scale, to create a beautiful state of inclusion. This is the true DEI, I believe, inclusion and not exclusion for everyone.
And I want to continue this conversation. I know you're busy, But for now, Layla
You're
Luna.
fine.
Oh, no
I
worries.
talk about this all day long.
All day long, yes, ma'am. But I want to get you back on the summer so we can talk more about the military and autism and how most of these businesses are actually being trained. But for now, Layla Luna with Just Be. Thank you for your time, and again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I hope for everyone to go to my website, just B-E-E-E, like a bumblebee, thechange.com.
Perfect, perfect. And I hope to have you back on soon. Thank you for your time.
I would love to. Thank you.
Thank you.